Joining us is former Whitewater independent counsel, former federal prosecutor, and partner for Thompson and Knight, Robert Ray. Robert, Senator Schumer wrongly called the nuclear option a rules change. It's actually a change in Senate precedent. I wanted to make that clear because the Senate has 44 rules and you need 67 votes to change those rules. So it would be, 7 more votes than even necessary to invoke cloture and stop debate on Gorsuch's nomination. I just wanted to make that clear. But when Senator Schumer said time to change the nominee, that's foolhardy. It's
nuts. I mean, that's just completely ridiculous. And also, who are we replacing here? We're replacing Justice Scalia. I'm certain that Chuck Schumer would consider Justice Scalia to be outside the mainstream. And we're replacing, at least according, if you use his test, one outside the mainstream justice with another outside the mainstream justice. It doesn't make any sense. And, President Trump is right. That's what we had an election about. So I disagree with the premise, first of all, that Judge Gorsuch is outside the mainstream. But even if you accept Senator Schumer's premise, it doesn't go anywhere because that's what we had an election to decide, and we're replacing Justice Scalia with Justice Gorsuch.
Well, to paraphrase the Wall Street Journal, Schumer is only going to be happy with anyone left of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, first and foremost.
Correct.
And they're still chapped, if you will, about Merrick Garland. But that doesn't mean that Judge Gorsuch is unqualified. In fact, he's incredibly qualified, and even when they've tried to attack him on business decisions, there are many instances where he's ruled against business interests.
Well, it's always easy to cherry-pick decisions, too. The judge has been a judge for quite some time.
Right.
If you want to pick one or two decisions and claim that establishes a pattern in practice, that argument really doesn't work. And second, and more importantly, if Chuck Schumer thinks he's accomplishing anything here, he's mistaken, because if the Senate changes the practice, as is clear is going to happen if the Democrats, have the votes at least to deal with the question of cloture. This isn't going to go anywhere either, because all this is going to do with a rule change is essentially mean that you're never going to have a mainstream nominee.
Right.
Each party is going to be able to confirm by a simple majority, and so he's not even accomplishing what he thinks he's trying to accomplish.
Well, what I'm confused about is they're saying he's not mainstream, but he's voted against the Republicans half the time when it wasn't unanimous consent when he voted before. Also, they couldn't find one thing against him. I haven't heard one argument. He's voted this way or he's this way. He seemed like he passed the test, right? Competence and character. And so what is this mainstream? How can he be more mainstream? I'm trying to, what is their main argument? Is it other than Garland? Because we don't even know if Hillary Clinton would have kept Merrick Garland.
I don't know what their main argument is. I mean, they seem to have made the attempt to argue that he's interested in trying to attack the administrative state, which obviously is something that President Trump has discussed. That's a question about whether or not Chevron, the Supreme Court's decision, should be overruled. But, there are a lot of mainstream people who have real problems with that decision. And
but that decision also keeps Trump's administration in check, which is good for the Democrats. His decision.
Well, and the fact, and as a lot of people have pointed out, I mean, Chevron was decided during the Reagan era, so it's kind of, again, it's somewhat of a nonsensical argument. All of a sudden, you have the Democrats believing fully in the administrative state. But, the question is, it depends on whose ox is being gored, and it depends on which aspect of the administration, the administrative state you favor.
Robert, do you think that the Republicans have to resort to changing Senate precedent? Because, by the way, we must always remind people, Harry Reid did this. The Democrats did this not for Supreme Court nominees, but for lower court judicial nominees and cabinet appointments back in 2013. So the Democrats might be jawboning about it now if there's a precedent change, but it happened under Harry Reid, and he's the one who opened the door for it.
I think there were a lot of Democrats who were seriously worried about reaching that result. I mean, I guess time will tell. 5 days in politics is a long time. I'll be really curious to see what the Democrats ultimately decide to do, and a lot of people are still being quiet about what will happen. So I don't know whether the votes are there or the votes are not there. It's a little too early to tell, and it's surprising that it's a little too early to tell on a Monday before a Friday vote.
Well, we did hear from Senator Claire McCaskill from the state of Missouri last week. She's up for re-election in 2018. That is a Trump state. That is a red state, and she's going to vote no on Gorsuch. So
I think a lot of Republicans were surprised at that. I think they actually thought that she might go the other way. That's not happening. But, not everybody's talking, and it's still not clear to me, even now, this late in the game, whether or not this is going to happen or it's not going to happen.
There's this story I want to get your ideas on. There's a city in Massachusetts that's going to decide whether to call for an impeachment investigation for President Donald Trump. There's a city council vote slated for today. There was actually a similar vote in the city of Berkeley, California, which, by the way, I'm surprised it's even part of the United States anymore. But is this just idiocy?
There's lots of cities in the United States. Yeah, it is idiocy.
That they're calling for but how is that in the interest of the people who live in these cities, that they're voting on impeaching the president? Well,
they're playing to the cheap seats, I suppose. And look, it's a big country. We're a divided country, I guess. There are lots of cities in this country, and there are lots of people who, I think, refuse even now, more than 70 days later, to accept the result of the election. And they're, thinking about any number of ways to try to see how they can damage this presidency. It's still very early, and the notion that people are talking about impeachment is ridiculous.
Yeah, and they're wasting government resources, especially on the municipal side.
I was going to say, they should have a vote. With the vote, they should say, do you actually know what impeachment means here? Because I think there's this misconception.
There should be a quiz beforehand.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think that's, if they're going to have frivolous votes like that, you might as well have one more.
And people don't understand how hard impeachment is. The system is designed that it requires both parties to be on board to impeach a president. That's not going to happen and it's intended not to happen, except in extremely unusual circumstances.
Somebody actually asked me that last week. Somebody who owns a business here in New York City kind of leaned over sotto voce and asked me about what it would take to impeach the president, and I went, what do you... I was like, are you drunk?
It's, to get elected to the Senate.
Right, seriously.
I know it's early in the morning to say that.
A civics lesson. No, but it really is the signaling of liberal groups in these more liberal cities. And it's the same thing that's going on with these people who are, liberal groups are pressuring not to vote for Judge Gorsuch. It's these very, very hard left liberal Democratic groups that are trying to signal and say, we want you to stop this man at any cost. So it's really a symptom, another symptom of the same issue.
They're sanctuary cities, all right. They're going to remain sanctuary cities in more ways than one.
Robert, it was great to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Come back later in the week. It's going to be a while.
It'll be an adventure.
Long week.
President Trump needs a W, a win. This could be it.
I think he'll have this, as they said, one way or another.
Okay, great. Robert Ray, thank you so much.